Thanksgiving, Thursday, November 28th, 2019. My sister-in-law curled her lip and said, "Family property belongs to the family, not just you." By day 10, after Sunday dinner on December 1st, an attempted move-in on Saturday, December 7th, and a dawn sabotage on Sunday, December 8th, I was staring at a $3,000 repair estimate. I am Emma, 34, and they thought their plan worked. If you have ever been blindsided by family greed, drop your city in the comments. Ballard in Seattle smells like wet cedar when the marine layer drifts in at dawn, a scent that always makes me think of fresh beginnings. I used to stand at the back steps of my little bungalow, the one with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and a backyard that looked humble until the light hit the crushed gravel just right, and I would say out loud, "You are safe here." My name is Emma. I run a small urban landscape design company that grew from a pickup truck, a wheelbarrow, and a notebook smeared with soil. I learned to calculate slope by feel, to read a yard the way other people read sheet music, and to stretch $20 into a week of mulch, coffee, and gasoline. I will tell you later why that matters. When I was a kid, everything about me said caretaker. My brother Ryan, the golden one who could charm a substitute teacher in under 10 minutes, got tagged as the fun one. I became the reliable one, which sounds noble until you realize how often reliability becomes invisibility. There is a Polaroid that lives in a frame on my bookcase, shot one rained-out Saturday when I was 13. I am in a second-hand slicker hauling a mower across my mother's muddy lawn, while Ryan leans on the porch rail, thumbs busy on a game console. My mother, Linda, captioned the picture in looping script, "Emma keeps us afloat." She meant it as praise. Somewhere, the universe heard it as permission. Fast forward to the first years after college, then the next, then the next. There was always someone to help. When Ryan lost one job, then another, I told him it would be temporary, and then I signed a lease as his guarantor. When temporary turned into a season, and then into 3 full years, I paid the rent more times than I said out loud. And I told myself I did it for his boys, Caleb and Noah, because kids should not feel the tremor of overdue notices. If you are keeping count, and this is important, that is 3 years of checks mailed from my kitchen table, without missed payments, without complaint. But keep listening, because no good deed is safe from the narrative it writes for other people. The house itself was my refuge, and my proof. 2 rooms to sleep, 1 room for books and plans, a kitchen that hosted a ridiculous number of condiments, because I am the kind of person who collects flavors, not shoes. 5 jars of mustard lined the shelf, Dijon brown deli honey, and one with seeds that snap like tiny fireworks. People laugh when they see them, and I laugh with them, but this detail will matter later. On the refrigerator, I pinned a clipping from a small magazine in the Pacific Northwest that featured my work 3 pages, some glossy photos of a courtyard I transformed with ferns and light. It was not a national spotlight. It was enough to make me stand taller when I hauled sacks of soil into the truck at sunrise. Here is another breadcrumb. By the front door next to a bowl where I drop house keys and business cards, a small white light glows when motion is detected. Neighbors get these for deliveries and porch pirates, and I got one because I am a planner by nature. It chirps politely when someone walks by and swallows hours of quiet footage of squirrels and mail carriers. I barely noticed it anymore the way you stop hearing a clock in the room. Remember that light? Family for me has always been a recipe with too much salt and not enough sugar. My parents, Linda and Frank, live south in Tacoma, in a house with a cherry tree whose roots have begun to buckle the walkway. They are the kind of people who can remember the last time I visited, but forget the jokes I did not laugh at. They love loudly. They enable quietly. If you have ever had a family who means well, you already know the geography. There is an upper bedroom for nostalgia, a kitchen where judgment is served alongside pie, and a dining room where expectations get carved with the turkey. I will take you back there soon. For now, I want you to meet Chloe, my sister-in-law. She is quick with a beauty tutorial, quicker with a barb. The first time she stepped into my house, she took a slow tour like a realtor and said, "What is yours is ours, right?" with a laugh that let everyone present choose whether to be offended. I chose not to be. That was my mistake, not because I failed to stand up for myself in that exact moment, but because I misread a pattern as a joke. People tell you who they are one offhand sentence at a time. You can trust them, or you can wait until proof arrives in high definition. There is a rule I learned on job sites that I carry into every room: measure twice, cut once. It does not just apply to lumber and pavers, it applies to the way you tell your own story. So let me measure properly. I am 34. I have built my business client by client with contracts that get signed in coffee shops and on back patios. I made the last mortgage payment on a rainy Tuesday and celebrated by buying a new pair of work gloves, the kind that fit snug around the wrist. I have a best friend named Callie, who has a laugh that resets the weather, and a colleague named Evan, who looks at the world like it is a puzzle with a clear solution if you just read the instructions. Between them, I have ballast and brain anchor and validator. I did not know then how much I would need both. What I am about to tell you begins at a dinner table and ends with a yard full of evidence. Do not worry if you miss a detail. I will flag the important ones as we go. But keep your eye on 3 things: the jars on my kitchen shelf, the magazine clipping held up by a magnet shaped like a fern frond, and that small white light by the door, which on the night that finally drew the line around my life, blinked once and then twice. They thought I would yell. They thought I would give in. I chose to be quiet, to log, to wait. Quiet is not weakness. Quiet is leverage stored. Thanksgiving in Tacoma always begins the same way at my parents' house. My mother, Linda, polishes a leaf-patterned plastic tablecloth as if it were heirloom linen. My father, Frank, insists the football game must hum in the background at a volume just below conversation, and the kitchen counters blossom with dishes that could feed a traveling choir. There is turkey and gravy, yes, but also a parade of sides that look like a personality test for everyone in the room. My contribution is a roasted root vegetable medley lifted with thyme and citrus. Chloe arrives with a casserole veiled in cheese and judgment. Ryan brings a bottle of store-brand sparkling cider and a grin that says he is about to ask for a favor. The boys, Caleb and Noah, tear through the hallway like comets, leaving laughter and sneaker squeaks in their wake. I set down my dish wipe, my palms on a kitchen towel, and feel the small lift in my chest that comes from knowing I have done what I set out to do. I made the last payment on my mortgage on a rainy Tuesday. Today, I am going to tell my family. We circle the table. My mother leads grace, a gentle prayer that thanks the heavens for health, for family, for the roof over our heads, and I cannot help it, the words make me smile into my napkin. When the plates are full and the clatter settles, my father nods at me. Emma has news, he says, like a camp counselor yielding the floor. My mouth goes dry in the silly way good news can nervously do. I say it evenly anyway. I paid off the house. For a heartbeat silence. I hear the refrigerator motor switch on. I hear a clock I never noticed begin to tick. A smile begins to reach for my mother's mouth, but Chloe gets there first. She leans back, eyes moving over me like a scanner, and says, "So you finally did something useful." There is a chuckle from Ryan, not a laugh, just the little sonic shrug of someone who wants to stay liked by the loudest person. I take a sip of water and choose not to rise to the bait. Quiet is not surrender. Quiet is leverage stored. Remember that. My father recovers by lifting the practical flag. "Well, that backyard is big," he says, carving into the turkey as if the bird holds solutions. "Boys need room to run." My mother adds, "Fresh air is good for children, and Emma works a lot. The house should not be empty." I nod once, twice, measuring my words like stone pavers. "The house is not a community center," I say gently. Ryan flashes the grin. "We are family," he says, the way some people say rain is wet. Family shares. That is when Chloe picks up her fork and taps the plate lightly, a ringtone of entitlement. "It is family property," she says. "The boys can take the bedrooms. Emma can use the office. Everyone wins." I look at Caleb and Noah, who are busy turning dinner rolls into tiny baseballs. They did not draw up this playbook. They are simply the chorus in a song they have not learned the melody for yet. I decide to be brief. "No," I say, warm as a blanket and firm as a doorframe. "My home is not communal property. Visit, yes. Move in, no." There is a sound families make when someone refuses to read from the script. It is not quite a gasp. It is a collective adjustment, the scraping of chairs, and the silence where agreements usually go. My mother fumbles for a new subject, announcing we have 5 kinds of mustard if anyone wants to make a sandwich later, as if condiments could patch over ownership. You think that is silly. It is. But it is also a thread I tug later because families hide their intentions in the ordinary. The way a person inventories your pantry can be a kind of reconnaissance. I will show you how. Ryan waits until cranberry sauce has stained the plates to try a softer route. "Congratulations, Em," he says, voice dipped in brotherly sugar. "You know the boys love your place. Caleb's asthma is better when he is in your yard. Fresh air, you know." It is almost persuasive, the invocation of a child's breath, the promise that what I have can be medicine. I keep my tone even. They can visit any weekend we set in writing. I will even design a little soccer strip for them in my own time. But no one is moving in. Chloe exhales theatrically, as if I have asked her to lift a car with one hand. "You know," she says, "what is yours is ours." She laughs at her own line, and everyone in the room gets to pick whether it was a joke. I do not flinch. Jokes are often trial balloons. Sometimes you let them float until you can chart exactly where they are headed. We clear plates. Football murmurs from the living room like a distant argument. My mother, unable to corral her impulse to orchestrate, pulls me aside at the sink and whispers that we can be flexible because, "Emma, you have so much space." I do not flip the script. I staple it. "I worked for that space," I say, softly rinsing gravy from porcelain. No one lives there without a lease and my consent. She blinks as if I have spoken a dense paragraph of law. "Let us discuss after dessert," she says, and kisses my temple, a mother's bribe buttery and well-intended. Dessert arrives pumpkin pie that could argue for statehood, a pecan tart that I have to pretend is not my favorite. Conversation thins. Gratitude gives way to logistics, which is exactly how families shift power without confession. There is talk of who will host Christmas. There is talk of which weekends the boys will have soccer. Ryan casually mentions how small their current apartment feels. Chloe comments on how noisy their neighbors are. I see the chessboard assembling out of thin air and sweet crust. So I do what quiet people do best. I watch, I collect. I make a mental note to back up my doorbell footage and clean up my inbox. On the drive home, the sky is a Seattle gray that teaches you 30 words for rain. My phone dings on the seat beside me. When I park, I look. It is a new group chat created by my mother. The title is Holiday Logistics. The members are me, my parents, Ryan, and Chloe. The first message is a photo of my guest room taken during their last visit with a caption from my mother. "This could work for Caleb." The second is from Chloe. "And the office for Noah. Emma can work in the kitchen." There is a thumbs up from my father. There is a heart from Ryan. I do not respond. Not yet. I take a screenshot. I mark the time. I star the conversation so it will never be lost. What they did not know was that every logistical whisper would become a breadcrumb, and that breadcrumbs given time and light can become a map out of a maze. I stand in my own kitchen, 5 jars of mustard lined like medals, and breathe. The small white light by my door blinks once, then twice. I press my palm to the counter and feel the cool of a home that is mine, because I built it one workday at a time, one invoice at a time, one payment at a time. They think I am the quiet one. They are right, and that is exactly why they should be careful. The week after Thanksgiving slid by like a gray ribbon rain beating on my windshield, while my phone chimed with messages from the new family group chat. Holiday logistics began as talk of caroling and cookie exchanges, but by midweek it had mutated into a blueprint for my square footage. My mother posted another photo from her camera roll, my guest room again this time with throw pillows she had brought over last spring, arranged like flags. "See cozy," she wrote. Ryan followed with, "The boys sleep better in Emma's quiet neighborhood." Then Chloe typed, "Let us do a trial month. No stress." The phrase trial month sat in my chest like a pebble in a shoe. Quiet is not panic. Quiet is measurement. I screenshotted dated archived. Little requests sprouted. Ryan texted, "Hey, can I borrow your truck Saturday morning? Just a couple of hours." Chloe sent a separate message. "We left the kids' sleeping bags in your hall closet last visit. Can you keep them there? Saves us lugging." They had not. There were no sleeping bags in my closet. That detail mattered. It meant she was rehearsing possession, narrating a future as if it were already history. I replied evenly that my truck would be on a job site and that I keep my closets clear. Then I did something I should have done years earlier. I put it in writing. Evan, my colleague, and the person I call when a problem needs precise language, skimmed my draft email while we ate lunch out of compostable bowls in the cab of my truck. He adjusted exactly 3 phrases and slid the phone back to me. "They are priming you," he said the same way architects say, "that wall is load-bearing." I sent the email under the subject house access and scheduling. It said in the gentlest true terms that visits were welcome on the first and third weekends of the month, with 48 hours notice that no overnight stays would occur without my explicit consent, that no items could be stored at my residence, and that I would not distribute keys. I included one sentence that tasted like steel no matter how soft I set it down. "My home is private property. Any entry without my consent is trespass." Then I thanked them for understanding and signed with love. It is possible to be warm and still draw a line. Callie, my best friend, the person who can anchor a storm with her laugh, read the sent email and squeezed my shoulder. "Now everything lives in text," she said. "Good. Paper trails save futures." She reminded me to back up my doorbell footage, to set the little white lights companion camera to a higher resolution, and to write down the serial number on every device in my house. It sounded paranoid until you recall that precaution and paranoia often wear the same coat until the moment one of them takes it off. The replies arrived fast. Ryan wrote, "Wow, formal, but okay if that makes you feel better." Chloe returned with something that read like a smirk. "No need to lawyer your own family. We are civilized. We will just pop by." Pop by is one of those phrases that asks for forgiveness instead of permission. I did not bite. I replied once, pasting my original message below it for clarity. Then I set my phone aside and turned to the work that keeps my head steady. I laid out a path of basalt stepping stones for a client who wanted to hear the soft clack underfoot on misty mornings. I set the stones level my hands in cold sand and told myself to trust the way truth holds when you tamp it. Breadcrumbs began to multiply. A neighbor, Jordan, messaged me on Nextdoor about a porch package that looked misdelivered. The name on the label was Chloe's. My address was mine. I checked the timestamp delivered during an hour I was away on a site walk. I took a photo, marked it not at this address, and returned it. I kept the carrier slip. When I mentioned it to Jordan, he said casually that he had seen Chloe a few days earlier asking around the block about reliable movers for Saturday morning early before traffic. He used the word casual. I heard staging. Looking back now, I can see how the casserole jokes and the "what is yours is ours" line were not jokes at all, just polite rehearsal. Back then, the proof arrived in tiny rehearsals of ownership. I found a child's sock under my guest bed that did not belong to any child who had slept there. I had washed those sheets myself after their last visit. The sock felt like a flag placed on a map. I held it between thumb and forefinger like evidence, and then put it in a clear sandwich bag, labeled it with the date, and tucked it into a folder. Call it overkill if you want. In courts and kitchens, details win. That Wednesday, my doorbell camera captured Chloe and Ryan on my porch at dusk, the lens finding their profiles in the porch light. They did not knock. They stood close enough that the microphone pulled in their whisper. "It is fine," Chloe murmured. "She will fold. She always does." Ryan jiggled the handle once, twice, not enough to be a break-in, just enough to test a story he was telling himself about my spine. Then he slid a small envelope through the mail slot. Inside was a card with a photo of Caleb and Noah in matching sweaters and a handwritten note. "We cannot wait to be at Aunt Emma's more." The word it sat there, smug. I set the card on the counter, positioned the camera footage beside it in a folder, and let the picture develop. When anxiety came, and of course it did, knocking late polite as a salesman, I did the thing I do on job sites when the ground shows me a slope I did not expect. I measured again. I pulled up Washington's statute on criminal trespass and saved a copy. I called the non-emergency line for the Seattle Police Department to confirm the steps to document a warning. I printed a template for a cease and desist letter and left it unsigned in a folder on my desk. I placed a modest sign by the side gate that simply read, "This property is under video surveillance." Not a threat, a fact. By Friday night, the group chat had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that is not peace but choreography. Linda sent a final message about bringing over extra blankets for the boys. Frank reacted with a thumbs up. Ryan sent a smiley face that meant everything and nothing. Chloe did not reply at all. The little white light at my door blinked once, then twice, then, just after midnight, 3 times in slow succession. Some people think quiet means nothing is happening. They are wrong. Quiet is a fuse you have measured to the inch. Sunday dinner came dressed like a peace offering and walked like an ambush. My parents love a ritual, so the table in Tacoma looked like a holiday prescribed by law candles that had been flickered only once, cloth napkins folded into tidy peaks, and a bowl of green beans so glossy it reflected the chandelier. Football mumbled in the next room like a neighbor you cannot quite ignore. I arrived with roasted carrots and a careful heart. Ryan and Chloe came without a dish, but with a posture that said, "Acquisition." The boys, Caleb and Noah, raced toward the backyard as if permission were oxygen. I reminded myself that children run where adults draw maps. We ate, we passed plates, we complimented textures as if textures could hold a family together. My mother, Linda, talked about how the cherry tree's roots were lifting a flagstone again. My father, Frank, said he knew a guy who knew a guy. At some point, the conversation took that hushed turn families reserve for delivering verdicts disguised as logistics. My mother cleared her throat the way she does before a hymn. "Emma," she began, "we have been thinking. The boys sleep so well at your place. Your street is quiet and you have the yard. We thought maybe for stability they could stay with you more." That word "more" walked into the room in a suit that was really a uniform. I set down my fork like a pen, signing a refusal. "Visits we schedule are welcome," I said. "Living at my house is not." Ryan leaned back in his chair, hands spread like a man showing he carries no weapons while he hides his strategy behind his smile. "Come on, Em," he said, easing every syllable with brotherly patter. "Family shares. You know how tight our apartment is." Chloe did not lean back at all. She leaned in, tapped the table with the tip of her fork, and announced with the confidence of a realtor at an open house, "It is family property. The boys will take the bedrooms. Emma can use the office." She looked at my mother, then my father, doling out eye contact like party favors. We all agreed, right? My mother blinked as if she had been presented with a menu she did not remember choosing. Frank, eager to keep the train moving, said, "It is practical." Chloe smiled as if practicality were her middle name. "Emma works all the time," she added. "Why let the house sit empty?" I thought about the late nights I spent drafting on my dining table, the mornings I pressed coffee grounds into a filter, like the start of a ritual. Empty is a perception, not a reality. I kept my voice warm enough to remind them I would not scorch the earth. "I am glad you feel comfortable at my place," I said, "but it is my place. No one moves in." There is a particular humiliation that arrives when your own family tries to vote you out of your life. It does not shout. It colonizes the air with certainty. Chloe began to assign rooms out loud like a foreman. "Caleb can take the room with the window, Noah the other. We will put a small desk in the corner for Emma, and she can do her plans there. The boys have early soccer, so it makes sense to keep their cleats in her mudroom. She had never stood in my mudroom long enough to see where I keep a broom." Ryan chimed in, "We will bring over the bunk beds this weekend. Easy." My mother nodded, anxious to be agreeable. My father reached for the gravy boat as though it were a gavel. I did not raise my voice. I did not list the 3 years of rent I had paid on their behalf, the invoices I had sent to myself from the kitchen table, or the mornings I had measured my backyard in steps to craft the lilt of a path that made strangers exhale. I simply folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate, and said, "No one brings furniture to my house." Linda tried to broker the way mothers do when a storm finds the harbor. Just for a trial month, she offered the phrase from the group chat blooming on her tongue as if it had grown there naturally. "You have so much space." I looked at her with every ounce of love I had and with every ounce of boundary I had built. "I worked for that space," I said. "I protect it. Chloe laughed a sound like a door closing behind you without a latch and rolled her wrist as if shooing flies. "You cannot gatekeep family," she said. "What is yours is ours." She said it so smoothly I almost missed the moment a script solidified into a claim. I did not bother reminding anyone of my email titled House Access and Scheduling, or the line in it about trespass. I had already put it into the record. I did not need to perform it for applause. Instead, I made a mental note of who affirmed what and when. Evidence is not anger. It is a light you turn on in a room full of assumptions. Somewhere between pumpkin pie and coffee, my father said what I had been waiting to hear, the sentence that wrapped the attempt in a bow. So Saturday, he said, "Ryan can swing by with the truck, and we will get those bunks in before traffic." There it was, the date, the mode, the intention. I asked, sweet as tea, "Which truck?" Ryan smirked. "U-Haul," he said. "Early," Chloe added. "Do not worry, we will keep it tidy. We know where everything goes." She did not. But she believed she did. Linda looked relieved, like a plan had finally put its hand on her shoulder. I gathered my plate and carried it to the sink. In the kitchen, away from eyes, I let my breath out and put my palms against cool porcelain. I thought of Evan's precise edits of Callie's anchor steadiness of Jordan, saying he had heard Chloe asking the neighbors about movers. I thought of the little white light by my door, the one that blinked once when something crossed the threshold of assumption. I washed my plate, dried it, and returned to the table, all calm. "Thank you for dinner," I told my mother. "I will see you soon." I did not say Saturday. I did not say U-Haul. I did not say trespass. I did not need to. They had handed me a schedule. I would hand them a boundary wrapped in law. On the drive back to Ballard, the marine layer draped the streets in quiet. My phone buzzed with a new message in the family group chat, a thumbs up from Frank, a heart from Linda, a smiley from Ryan, silence from Chloe. I saved the thread, marked the time, and pulled into my driveway. The porch camera winked to life as I walked up the steps. Quiet is not surrender. Quiet is the moment before a fuse becomes a line of light. Saturday arrived, dressed like any other Seattle morning, the sky a soft sheet of pewter, and the air holding the scent of wet fur, but my porch camera clicked awake before the kettle had even finished its gentle hiss. The little white light winked twice, and then a boxy truck with the orange stripe rolled to the curb, as if the street itself had invited it. The logo on the side might as well have been a flag. A second sedan tucked in behind it, and 3 men in matching shirts hopped down palms already chalked with that quick professional impatience movers wear when the plan is to be in and out before the neighborhood stirs. I did not flinch. I had laid out my tools the night before, not shovels and trowels, but words and law. I brewed coffee steady as a metronome and watched the screen until the first knock sounded polite and practiced. When I opened the door, the lead mover gave the standard opener friendly and transactional. "We are here for the 2 bedrooms, he said, glancing at a clipboard that suddenly seemed as official as a court order. Behind him, Ryan leaned on the porch rail, in a posture that tried to blend relaxation with ownership. Chloe stood a step lower, assessing angles like a realtor in a hurry. I let them speak first because entitlement is most honest before it is corrected. "We will get the bunks into the kids' rooms and then bring over the dresser," Ryan said, flashing the grin he uses like bolt cutters. I glanced at the clipboard. Under destination, my address. Under contact, not my name. I met the mover's eyes and kept my voice warm, even undeniable. "No one is moving anything into my house," I said. "Any entry without my consent is trespass." I lifted a simple page from a folder one I had printed and dated the night before, and held it where he could read a notice declining services for any delivery or move related to my address, unless authorized by me, signed in ink time-stamped with my phone number for verification. I have already called the non-emergency line for the Seattle Police Department to log a potential trespass. I added truth sitting calm in my mouth, and I will call again if anyone crosses the threshold. Movers are many things, but they are not fools. Liability speaks a language everybody understands. The lead skimmed the page, glanced at the porch camera, then at Ryan. "We cannot proceed without the occupant's authorization," he said crisp. "Now," the friendly tone folded away. Chloe's laugh showed teeth. She is family, she told him, waving the idea of legal boundaries like a fly. We have permission. The mover shook his head once gently. She is the occupant. She said no. He turned to his crew. Load up. The choreography snapped tight. Boxes that had begun to hover in midair found themselves lowered back into the truck. Dollies reversed direction with a little squeak. The orange stripe widened as the big vehicle edged forward, waiting for the signal to roll out. Ryan's face did a quick weather change, the kind storms do when they realize the map was wrong. You are being dramatic, he said to me, grin gone. This is not a crime. I did not raise my voice to meet his. I did not recite the 3 years I had floated his rent like a quiet lifeline. I simply gestured with an open palm to the camera at my shoulder, the one whose little white light glowed like a small patient moon. Then we will all be comfortable with documentation, I said, because if anyone enters my home without my consent, it will be recorded and reported. Chloe took one step up, chin elevated. You cannot threaten me with a camera, she said. You cannot threaten me with anything. This is family property. She slipped on the words, family property, as if they were ice skates. I let them glide into silence and then fall. It is not, I said. It is my home. Somewhere on the sidewalk, a neighbor's wind chime answered a breeze. Somewhere inside the truck, a strap ratcheted home with finality. The lead mover, a man who had likely seen every permutation of hope and denial in the language of boxes, tipped his cap at me. Ma'am, he said, apology and relief woven into one syllable, we will be on our way. He handed Ryan a copy of the order and a pen. We will mark it canceled, not delivered. The pen hovered for a heartbeat before Ryan snatched it and pressed too hard, carving his name into the paper like he could make the world obey by force. When the truck pulled away, the sound of its engine was less roar than exhale. The second car followed. The block returned to its Saturday morning heartbeat. That is when the performance began, the one entitlement puts on, when it loses an audience. You have no idea what you just did, Ryan hissed, stepping closer, trying to reclaim ground the way people who have never earned it believe they can. The boys need space. You owe us that. I did not step back. I did not step forward. I stayed rooted in oak in a yard I had planted. I do not owe you access to my home, I said. I offered visits. I will design a little soccer strip for them in my time. I will not be moved. Chloe's expression went sour. You are selfish, she said, a verdict that wanted to stick. After everything we have done for you. The sentence rang absurd in the cool air. Everything in this case meant my 3 years of checks and a stream of casual demands dressed as jokes. I let it pass me the way rain passes over a waxed leaf. Leave, I said, kind and final. Do not return without an invitation. Ryan started to speak. I lifted a hand and opened the door. We are done here. I closed it with the same calm with which I open a gate to a finished garden. Inside, I let my chest heave once. Then I did the things that turn feelings into facts. I saved the morning's footage, labeled it with date and time. I wrote a summary while the details were hot, including the names on the movers' shirts, the license plate number I had quietly snapped a photo of from the front walk, and the exact sentences spoken. I emailed the non-emergency line to append my report and asked for the incident number. I texted Evan and Callie not for permission, but so that the timeline lived in multiple places. And then, because quiet revenge is not only a destination, but a discipline, I watered my ferns and swept the porch because order is a message too. By noon, the house had settled back into its usual rhythm, kettle radio, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft click that means the doorbell camera has archived a clip. I made a sandwich with mustard that snaps in the mouth and leaned on the counter listening to the small sermon of a home that is truly yours. The little white light blinked once, then twice. I did not yet know what the next clip would show, only that soon I would stand in a backyard that looked like a battlefield and feel for a heartbeat like I had lost. But even in that imagined loss, the spines of my files stood straight. Their plan had met a line. My quiet had drawn it. I spent the afternoon turning anger into paperwork. Evan helped me polish a short cease and desist email that quoted Washington's trespass statute in plain English and attached a PDF summary of my house rules I had already sent. I called the Seattle Police Department's non-emergency line, appended the morning's porch encounter, and wrote down the incident reference. Then I did the boring, powerful things, exported the doorbell clips labeled each with date and time, took still frames where Ryan's hand tested the handle and where Chloe smirked at the mover, and saved everything to 2 cloud drives and 1 thumb drive sealed in a sandwich bag. Callie arrived with coffee and that anchoring laugh that makes chaos blink first. She walked my fence line with me, checked every latch, and stuck a tiny decal on the side gate that read video monitoring in use. It was not a threat. It was a boundary in ink. Before she left, she squeezed my arm. Let them make the next move. Your move is already documented. She was right. Quiet is not passive. It is preparation. And preparation has a sound, the click of files syncing the little doorbell light, blinking once, twice, like a metronome counting down. Dung. The next move came before sunrise, wrapped in damp air and bad decisions. I returned from an early site visit and froze at the edge of my yard. The path stones I had set with my own hands lay canted like broken teeth. Drip lines yanked up and left like veins. Roses, the ones I had coaxed through a long, stubborn spring, were stomped flat into mud. For one hot, dizzy second, I forgot how to breathe. Then the small white light on my porch rewrote shock into sequence. I opened the app. The backyard camera had caught 2 silhouettes at gray-blue dawn Ryan's shoulders. Chloe's bun moving through the beds with purpose, whispering, "Make it look messy so she gives up." Their faces turned enough for the lens to find them. Shoes, brands, timestamps, all of it. I called the non-emergency line, added a vandalism note, and followed instructions: take photos before touching anything estimate damages list items. I measured the torn lines, counted shattered pavers, and called the contractor I trust for a written quote. He came before noon, walked the wreckage, and said, $3,000 to restore, a little more to harden it against more foolishness. I asked for the words in writing ink and letterhead. I took a breath, wiped mud off my palms, and felt something settle. They wanted me loud. I would be exact instead. I drove to Tacoma with a neat folder and a steadier spine. Sunday dinner had trained us for theater. I came for court. In my parents' living room, I plugged a thumb drive into the television and let the proof unspool in quiet. No commentary. Just frames, Chloe tugging the fence picket, Ryan kicking a stone, the whisper about making it look messy, the timestamps matching the ruined beds. I paused on faces, let silence do the heavy lifting. Frank's jaw worked. Linda's hands fluttered toward her mouth. Ryan muttered something about deepfakes that even he did not believe. Chloe rolled her eyes and tried on contempt like a coat. "You are being dramatic." I set a 2-page packet on the coffee table, the contractor's estimate totaling $3,000, a short letter, recapping my prior written boundaries, and a simple choice. Within 7 days, I said transfer $3,000 for repairs and email me a written apology. Or I file a formal complaint with Seattle Police, take this to small claims court in King County, and share a factual account with my neighborhood on Nextdoor. I will not argue. I will only proceed. Chloe scoffed. Ryan pointed at me and said, I owed them bringing up those rent years as if they were leverage and not proof of my patience. I did not list the checks. I did not list anything. I stood. 7 days, I repeated, and walked out while the footage froze on their faces. A countdown changes the feel of oxygen. Day 1, silence that rang like a bell. Day 2, a long text from Linda about family and forgiveness. I screenshotted archived, replied with one sentence, 7 days. Day 3, a string of messages from Ryan swinging between insults and pleas, claiming I was ruining the boys' lives, ending with fine, take us to court. I did not reply. Day 4. Chloe sent a single line, you would not dare, and a photo of my guest room from a past visit, as if memory were ownership. I did not reply. Day 511, missed calls filled my screen, voicemails, thick with panic and spin. I did not reply. Day 6, Frank texted, can we talk? I wrote, after resolution. I slept for the first time in a week. Morning of day 7, my phone chimed with a bank notice. A Zelle transfer landed $3,000 memo line for landscaping. 1 minute later, an email from Chloe, 3 tight sentences that were not apology so much as surrender. I forwarded both to my incident thread with the police, noting that I had received payment and would not pursue charges at this time. Then I sent one reply to Ryan and Chloe together. Received. Do not contact me except through counsel. Any attempt to enter my property will be documented and reported. I put my phone face down and went outside. Quiet had kept me safe. Now it would keep me free. Restoration became ritual. I hired my crew and we rebuilt not just what had been broken, but what I had dreamed in the tired hour before sleep: a stronger subgrade under the pathstones, a drip system tucked and armored, a rose bed doubled and bordered with rock that would not be kicked from true. Neighbors stopped and smiled. Jordan waved, handed me a coffee, and said he was glad I had handled it the smart way. The small magazine that once featured my courtyard called about a follow-up. A facilities manager at a Seattle tech campus saw it and asked for a proposal. By summer, my company had a contract that made the shaky early years feel like preface, not struggle. Meanwhile, Ryan and Chloe broke their lease early and paid for it. Fees and deposits drained. Their credit scores slipped. They moved back with my parents to save money, 4 people squeezed into 3 rooms, tempers fraying against drywall. I did not gloat, though there were moments I could have. I watered my roses. I stacked my files in a fireproof box and slid it into a closet that holds only what belongs to me. Quiet revenge is not fireworks. It is a garden that blooms the season after you almost lost it. 1 year later, on a morning that smelled like wet cedar and new beginnings, I sat on the back steps with coffee and a calm I had built plank by plank. I thought about leverage stored lines drawn and the difference between being loud and being heard. If you have ever been blindsided by family greed, here is the permission you might need. Measure twice, draw the line. Once keep your receipts and let silence do what shouting never could.